Hello,
Hi.
Aisha. How are
Hi.
you? How are you today?
Good. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. I think we've met once before.
Oh, yes, we did.
I think it was a while ago. But what have you been doing? I think were you working for an airline? Am I right in guessing that?
Oh, yes. Oh, that's very good memory. I used to. I just quit for a while because
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I did a lot of job seeking nowadays. That's why I'm quite busy.
Oh, okay. And how is that going? Are you enjoying it? Is it going okay?
Well, it's quite tough. I have to admit it's not easy at all.
I agree with you. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm in the same situation because I was working at a university last year, well, for many years. And then with the pandemic, there were no students. And so
Oh,
they got rid of many staff, many staff. And
oh,
part of my role, I was working with students, taking them around London and telling them about the history of London. And because there was no students, they got rid of, I think, 100 staff and me included, yeah, all in one go. They just said, okay, and then they just went, you're redundant. And
oh. I'm
so
so
that's,
sorry to hear that.
I know so I'm guessing it's the same for you, that you were not so busy because of the airlines.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, my company provide is a volunteer package, recycling
Oh,
package. So actually, a lot of my colleagues they choose to stay because like they didn't take the offer. So like
oh,
they
okay.
still they still keep the job, but I don't think the the salary is that good compared to like
Yeah, of
before the pandemic. So I don't think it's
course.
worth it. So I
Yeah,
think it's better I just take the money and I
yeah,
went back.
yes, good idea. And so now are you searching for new jobs,
Oh
different things?
yes, yeah, exactly. I did. So I interviewed for several companies. So, but unfortunately, a few of them I went through the finals, but I didn't get the offer eventually.
Oh,
So it's like I have
oh,
to like pull myself together. I have to apply again. Like,
yes.
cause yeah, it's really disappointing.
It is. It's funny. You and me this week are in the same situation because last
Um,
week I had two interviews, and one of them I thought went very well, and then they came back to me and they said, no, no, it's not going to happen." And then they said, so I asked them why. I actually wrote them an email saying, could you tell me why a little? Because I felt it went well. And then they said, oh, we're changing the job. You were great, but we've decided to change the job. So like I didn't get the job because they're changing part of the job, which is a real shame. But it's hard. It is hard, but it's the life at the moment. I think we have to just try and work our way through and be good to ourselves,
yeah.
be kind. I think there's a new initiative in London at the moment. It's called, actually I'll put it in the chat. It's put it in the share screen. It's quite a good phrase. um and it's a new thing. You could listen to the videos. Actually, let me just see, get Google, sorry, let me get Google Translate up. It's called the kindness economy. Can you see the screen?
Oh yes, I did.
Yeah, because kind of, and there's a lady called Mary Portas, and she's a great person. I've met her. She works in fashion and retail, and she knows a lot about business. And she's started this new concept called the kindness economy, about how, because of the pandemic, things are going to have to change in all our lives, and we're going to have to find new routes to employment. And she's done some blogs. She's written some. She's done some You know what a podcast is?
Oh yes, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. If you look up the kindness economy, Mary Porterson podcast, she's done some free podcasts available on Apple, and you can listen to her talking. She's very interesting, and she has many new good ideas for the future, because she's saying that retail and she's saying consumerism consumerism will have to change.
Yeah,
Consumerism is the way, the consumerism is the way we buy things. You know that word. It's the word for how we sell, how we buy things from shops, from airlines, everything. And she's saying post pandemic, we're going to have a different structure. And I think it's true. And I think we're going to have to find new ways of living, I think, for many people.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. Because like a lot of the jobs, like face-to-face jobs, will definitely change a lot. Because like company they figure out, oh, we can just do everything online. We don't need to hire people to do like interaction jobs. So I totally get it.
And also I think working online, like me talking to you today, is great because we're interacting, but I think there are many jobs online with no interaction, and I think that's very hard for people to work in those situations where they're just on with a computer and then no one else, because you suffer from, as a great word, I'm sure you know it, isolation. Isolation, and then loneliness. You become lonely because you don't have that colleague interface. You don't have that. It's a great word in English. We call it, oh, hello, who's this? Repartee. Who have I got? Oh, Alice. Hello, Alice. Repartee. It's a great word. Repartee. You might not know it. Repartee. It's a conversation you have. Well, like us, but quite fun, quite witty, quite, with back and forth. So not a boring conversation, a conversation with animation. And we use the word repartee if it's witty and quick and fun. And I think without being with colleagues, you miss that. You miss that repartee. I mean, I'm sure when you were working for the airline, sometimes you could have a quick conversation, which was very funny. And about, just something very simple. But at the moment, you cannot have that in your work life. It's very difficult. And online, it's very difficult to have that, I think, repartee. But yeah, it's interesting. Well, always when you come to my classes, always tell me about what's happening with your life. Feel free, because I think it's very good to talk.
Yeah, sure.
You're welcome. You're always welcome to tell me, how it's going. And I will always try and remember to ask you how your life is with the jobs, because it's important, and also it is tough. Sometimes it's tough because you expect to get a job, you work really hard for the interview, and then it doesn't happen. And it's difficult. I understand that. So you're welcome to always talk to me.
Sure. Thank you. And I feel like it's quite, I mean, the interview procedures are so different compared to before. Because we used to just have a face-to-face interview, but nowadays we do all the virtual one. And I expect the procedure should be fast, but not really, because the company asks a lot of I have to do a case study by myself first. I have to make a presentation to them online. So actually the procedure is longer than I expected.
Yes. It's true. I mean, my applications, some of them are taking 4 hours to write, because the questions are so long. You have to write lots of things. And then when you have an interview, if you get to the interview stage, they deconstruct all your questions and then ask you more, and it's long. Hello, Chloe. Nice to see Chloe. Alice. Hello, Alice. How are you?
Hi, I'm great, thank you.
Can you hear me and can you see me?
Yes, it's cute.
Oh, great. Now I'm experimenting with some backgrounds because ABC Online. I like to have plain backgrounds because I think it sometimes detracts from, I'm talking. But they've asked me to try some backgrounds. The problem is, as you can see, I'm losing bits of my sleep.
Yeah.
And my eyes, I think it makes my eyes go. So if you can't see my face clearly, tell me and I'll switch it off and I'll go back to white, because I think if I wear black clothes, it's fine. But in wearing blue clothes today, I can see there's bits of me missing, like along here. It looks a bit crazy, but hopefully you can see me. Hello, Chloe. How are you today, Chloe? Are you well?
Yes, I'm well, thank you.
Excellent. Good to see you. And nice to see you, Alice. I think, have we met before? Have I met you once before? Is this your first time in my
No,
class?
that is the first time in your class.
Okay, well, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming today. And it's interesting because we've got a video and which just seems to have vanished. But what I'm going to do is, it's, you know, the talk today is about London's landmarks. But I sort of wanted to show you alternative London landmarks, because I think that, you know, I'm sure we can guess some of the most famous ones, and I think you already know them. So I'd sort of like to show you something a bit different, because I know London so well, and it is my city. And so I don't know what you feel about that, but I would like to share with you some of the more unusual places and more fun things in London. But first of all, we can talk about more traditional places. I mean, interesting. I'll try. The video seems to have just temporarily vanished. Oh no, it is there, but it's just not there at the moment. We'll bring that back. Let me just stop sharing for a minute, and then I'll just get the first video up. I won't be 1 second. Oh, you can see me still, but I just want to check the thing. Let me just see if it just comes up. Oh yeah, no, we have got it. It's just separated it into a different page. Hopefully it's there. Can you see my screen? Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Now this is
Yes,
the first
I can.
video. Also, this is well, what we'll do is we'll do the traditional things first, and that will be quite traditional, normal. I can tell you about them. But then I'll show you some of the more less traditional. Now, interestingly, the photograph behind me, which I'll move slightly so you can read it. Can you see the picture? Can you read what's on the building? Can anyone read this name here? Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was a very, very famous English writer. And he wrote many stories in the Victorian period. And I'm sure you would have heard of some of them. Oliver Twist is the most famous, perhaps, you would have seen. There's a great film, many films, but some of his stories have been translated. And this building is connected to one of his stories called the Old Curiosity Shop. And this building still exists in London. This building is about 300 years old.
Teacher will stay on the video screen.
Sorry,
there are no building in the screen.
Oh, is there? What, you can't see anything here? Can you not see anything behind me?
Behind you. Oh.
Yeah, can you see the words? Can you see any, is it a blank screen or is it a picture behind my head?
Oh, yes.
Can you see it now? It's,
yes,
I'll get a bigger picture, but I just chose this background today because it's quite an alternative London, you know. But let's watch we'll watch the video, and also we're using this new system called new sort of translation system. So hopefully you can see the Chinese translation at the bottom of the screen, and it will let me highlight words just in case you don't know them. But I think I have to say, your English, all of you ladies, you're very good. I know you're very good already. So I think you will understand many of the words in the video. But just before we start, I thought I'd put them into Google Translate. Can you think of any famous London sites, the most famous London monuments? Can you name one? Can anyone name one?
Covent Garden.
Covent Garden, yeah, that's a good one.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's a great one because that's not very well known to everyone. It's a great site for tourists. It's the site of a very old market, actually. There was a market there 200 years ago, and for fruit and vegetables. and that's originally fruit and vegetable market. Yeah. So Alice, can you think of one? Can you think of a
London Eyes.
London Eye? Yeah, that's a really good one. You're good because you're thinking of really unusual ones. Really, that's a good one. Alice, have you been to London?
Yes.
Oh,
for
okay. So,
3 days.
oh, great. So you went to the London Eye. Did you go in the London Eye?
No, because the ticket is too expensive.
It is. You're right.
I used to be a student before.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree. I think it's expensive as well. I think it's even expensive for London people. It's too expensive. I mean, interestingly, with my work with students in London, I take them to interesting places that are free. And there's some many amazing free places to visit in London. Like unusual markets, unusual museums, places of interest, with great history, and you can visit them for free. All you have to do is get a ticket now online, and then you can go. But there are many. Can you think of a famous place in London to visit, Chloe?
Tower Bridge.
Tower Bridge, yes, that's very good. Tower Bridge, that's very famous. Interestingly, with Tower Bridge, many people think Tower Bridge is London Bridge. But Tower Bridge was built in the Victorian period, about 100 years ago. I think it was built in about 1885. But many people think it's London Bridge because it's very iconic. It's, everyone knows it when they see it. But I don't know if you know the story. Many years ago, a very bad man who was a criminal, he said he wanted to sell London Bridge to an American man who had millions and millions of pounds. And but he said he thought he was getting Tower Bridge because he thought that was London Bridge, but he actually got a totally different bridge. And because the real London Bridge had fallen apart, and so he basically sold him old London Bridge, which was just stones, broken stones. But actually, eventually, the man in America rebuilt the old London Bridge. And now, if you look on Google, there is a London Bridge in America. I can't remember which state it's in, but it is part of the original London Bridge. I think it's in the desert somewhere. And but now we have another London Bridge because, in fact, there have been many London bridges because they all fell down over the centuries. One was constructed of wood and it just fell in the river, and there was a Roman one. But let's watch this first video. I think it might be very traditional. I didn't choose this video, but we can stop and discuss it, and then we'll watch a very alternative video I found about hidden London, which I love, which has got some great places. Even I didn't know about one of them, so it's very good. But let's watch this. Hopefully you can see my screen. I might try and go full length, if it's not too.
It's a city fit for a queen. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 London landmarks. For this list, we've chosen places that carry historic and/or cultural significance within the city of London. Number 10, Trafalgar Square. One of the most popular public...
I will just stop it for a moment. She says the City of London. Now, actually, there's something she's American, this lady, I can tell you, she's not English. The City of London is actually 1 square mile. It's not the actual old city, it's just an area, a small area. So when she's saying the city, she's not really saying the city. She's saying the big city because she doesn't understand, because the top 10 landmarks in the city would be very different. For instance, Trafalgar Square isn't really in the city of London. It is in London, it's just not in the city of London, because the city, it's known as the, I'll put it in the thing, it's known as the square mile. And it has, it doesn't actually have a barrier, but there are amazing sculptures of dragons. Well, they're sort of dragon, griffin, griffin sculptures. Have I spelled skull? There's two, sorry, an extra T in there. Yeah, they're dragon griffin, and they are at the entrance to the roads in the city. So when you can always see them, and they're at each part in the square mile. So so to start with, that lady's wrong. I shouldn't. Sorry, I'm just gonna have some water. Western, hello. Hello, mate. How are you today?
I'm good.
Thank you for coming. We've got Alice here today for the first time in one of my classes, and we've got a good group. We're talking about London, but I'm going to show you some alternative London. The lady has got traditional London. The first video is about traditional London, and she's American, and she's saying strange things. Okay. Well, she's not from England, that's why. But I'm probably going to disagree with her all the way through.
Public meeting places in London and the site of celebrations, sporting events, protests, and more. Trafalgar Square is situated in the city of Westminster.
Yeah, well, that's
originally
true.
Named Charing Cross, the area was redeveloped in the early 1800s and renamed to commemorate an important victory in the Napoleonic Wars. In addition to Nelson's Column, which honors a hero of that same battle, Trafalgar Square is also home to several extravagant fountains, the famous Fourth Plinth, and the National Gallery. Number 9, the London Eye. Also called
London
the Millennium
Eye.
Wheel,
Well done.
this observation wheel was built to coincide with Y2K, and today it's the most widely visited paid tourist attraction in the United Kingdom. Located adjacent to Jubilee Gardens, it was the world's tallest Ferris wheel when it was erected, measuring 443 feet or 135 meters high. Though that record has since been surpassed, the London Eye still attracts over 3.5 million observers each year, offering them unparalleled views of many of London's most popular sites.
One thing I will tell you about the London Eye, which is quite funny, I know someone who works there, and it goes really slowly. It's not like fast, you know, it's not like a Ferris wheel. So the one problem they have is with young children, because it takes about 45 minutes to go round. Often young children, you know, need to use the bathroom, and it's a real nightmare for the people who work there because they can't speed it up. So, and there's no telephone. So like they have this problem. Parents go with young children and just like, we need to use the bathroom, and you can't, you're just trapped in the wheel. So it's just like that. And then the next person comes into the pod and it's not so much fun. I'm not going to explain more, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So it's not, it's a stranger. I mean, I went there and even I, you know, I was like, how long is this going to take? Because you're moving like that. It's
Yeah.
so slow like that. You know, it's good, but I think it's about £20 as well. So very expensive,
Yeah.
I think. I think there are, you know, there are many fun places. Also, there are places you can go in London to get great views of London. There's a great place. I'll just put it in the Google Translate. It's called, I took some students there last week, actually. Oh, Alexandra Palace. It's a building in North London, and it's high up because it's on a hill. And so and it's free. You can go there for free on the bus. Just get the local bus. And then when you get there, you have this big viewing platform and you get a great view, like a panorama, we say, or a vista, you know this word, I'm spelling everything wrong today. Panorama or vista. You know, you get a complete view across all the parts of London and very interesting monuments. You can see the east, you can see the west, and it's a very nice building as well. And it's actually, interestingly, the first place in the world where they had television, a television broadcast of a high definition television in 1936. And the BBC, which I expect you've heard of, BBC Television, which is our national broadcaster. But it was the first place in the world they had high definition television. And there's some great footage of, actually, I can show you about that one time. And one time, actually, we could do a talk on that because the footage is very funny, and it was live television. I expect you know live television, so you cannot rehearse. They just literally press the button on the camera and it starts. And there's a lady singing, and she's brilliant. She's singing really well, but she trips on a cable on the floor. So she starts singing. She's going down, and she goes like this slightly, which isn't good. Also, she's wearing a big bird on her shoulder, which is very strange. Anyway, we'll get on. It's a great song. I love the song.
Number 8, St. Paul's Cathedral. Located atop London's highest point, St. Paul's Cathedral, in its current incarnation, was designed by architect Sir Christopher Wren and consecrated in 1708. A major site on the London skyline, this Church of England cathedral is recognizable thanks to its famed dome, which is enclosed by spires. The location of several prominent events over its history, today it draws visitors who wish to admire its architecture, marvel at history, or find a quiet spot for reflection.
Interestingly, you have to pay to go in, but if you go to a service in the evening, a church service, you can sort of go into the church service and then just look around. I mean, to be honest, you can just sing the hymns, and then get a free visit rather than, Interestingly, this piece here, this is known as the foreshore of the River Thames. I will put this in because I'll tell you something interesting. Foreshore. It's the edge of a river, because the River Thames in London do you know what I mean by tidal river? Anyone? Could anyone do you know what a tidal river is? Anyone, can you tell me? Oops, sorry, it's just moved. Does anyone, so my screen's jumping today. Does anyone know what the word tidal means? Tidal? Weston? Do you know what this means? Tidal river, tidal. Well, basically, it's a river that's affected by the sea. So, rivers are connected to the sea, and in London, the River Thames is a tidal river because the sea is very close to London. And so what happens is every day the river goes up and down. It goes sort of in and out, if you know, like the sea does on a beach, And so what happens is in London, the foreshore, which is this word, which is a great word, foreshore, it's the area between the edge of the river and the water. And at low tide, the river is uncovered and you can walk along the edge of the river. And I tell you, it's fascinating. It's very, very fascinating because there are many things that get thrown in the river, and you can find old things, sometimes hundreds of years old, that are on the foreshore. And each day, twice a day, it gets worked up. And go back to the picture. I'll just show you the picture again. St. Paul's. This is the foreshore. So you can see there's sand and you can walk along here. And actually about 2 weeks ago, I did that. There's a little set of stairs and you can come down here and you can walk along here when the river is out. And it's very interesting. And it gives you a different perspective on London history. And you can find some amazing things. In fact, near the end of the lesson, because I've walked many times, I found some things, so I'll quickly go and grab something from my shelf and show you. But anyway, let's carry on.
Number 7, Wembley Stadium. After the original stadium on this site was demolished in 2003, a new and completely redesigned arena was built and opened 4 years later. The new Wembley was given a more modern design, with a 436-foot, 133-meter arch standing out as its most prominent feature. With a seating capacity of 90,000.
That's where we just lost the European Cup. I just thought I'd tell you, that's where we lost it, very sadly. We've got I won't tell you about it now, but we have a big discussion in England at the moment about everything, not the football, but the racism that the players, the great young players suffered. The heroic, teenagers. The man who took the penalty is like 19, and there's a big. If you want to read the BBC website about it, it's very interesting. I'm going to wind through Wembley quickly.
The site on which the Abbey is now built has been a place of prayer.
Oh yeah, the Westminster Abbey.
As one of the United Kingdom's most significant religious structures, Westminster has hosted many important events throughout its history, including weddings, burials, and coronations. The site on which the Abbey is now built has been a place of prayer for over a millennium.
Does anyone know what the word this word means? Coronation. Does anyone know coronation? No. It's, I'll tell you, I'll demonstrate very quickly. Hang on. Grab something. Sorry. Found the thing I need. What does anyone know what this is? What is it called, the word, you know?
Crown.
Crown, yeah. Right, so I have to go down a bit in my screen. Coronation is this.
Oh.
It's when you put the crown on the head of the king or the queen. And it's a ceremony which in England we have had for over 1,000 years. And the coronation takes place usually in Westminster Abbey. It's a very special religious occasion, actually. It's very beautiful. You can see the ceremony from the Queen, which is now almost 70 years ago she was crowned in 1953. And it's very beautiful, the ceremony, but it's called coronation. Yeah, it's a great word. I think actually probably the word corona, which means crown, comes from this little crown. This isn't a special crown, by the way. It's just a little crown I had. Right, let's continue. It keeps popping up today. Let me just get rid of that. For some reason, all the pages separated today on the screen. Let's have a look, see what else they're going to say.
But construction on the Gothic church as it stands today began in 1245 on the wishes of Henry III. Providing a snapshot of British tradition, Westminster Abbey is a living monument to history appreciated by over 1 million visitors annually. Number 5, Piccadilly Circus. The bright lights and hordes of people convening in this famous London road junction are enough to convince any visitor that it's a circus. Built in 1819, Piccadilly has become a crossroads that leads to several other locations. In fact, visitors will find shopping, theaters, and other sources of entertainment.
Piccadilly Circus is a road junction. I'm going to tell you, it might be good to visit, but I can't tell you when. I think it was okay to visit it in the 1920s when all these buildings were new and glamorous, and it was very evocative and beautiful. Now it's just full of traffic and people and food joints. You know, there's a McDonald's. You know, I don't think you want to come to London to visit McDonald's. Hello there. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm fine.
Excellent. Thank you for coming. We're talking about London. We're talking about the traditional places, but now we're going to start soon talking about not traditional places, unusual places. But have I got Delia here? I can't see your name.
Yes, I'm Delia.
Delia, that's what I thought, dear. How are you today, Delia?
I'm pretty good.
Excellent. Thank you for coming. Let's continue. So I'm going to skim through Piccadilly Circus because it's a bit boring, Piccadilly Circus. That's my feeling. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, because what we're going to do is we're going to do some of the unusual the unusual places. Let me just move this.
Entertainment nearby, lit by its well-known neon signs, and with the Shaftesbury Memorial Fountain providing a place for weary travelers to rest, Piccadilly Circus is now one of the busiest
sorry.
squares in London. Number 4, Buckingham Palace. One of
Oh, decided.
the world's last working royal palaces, Buckingham Palace is both the workplace and the London dwelling used by the British monarch. Though part of the building was constructed as early as 1705, the palace was expanded in the 1800s, at which time it became the royal residence. Today, crowds gather near Buckingham Palace to greet the royals, admire its ornate exterior and gardens, or to witness the renowned changing of the guard ceremony.
I can tell you something about Buckingham Palace. The Queen doesn't like living there. It's big and it's very cold inside. And the Queen lives in a small part at the back. And the front of the palace was only built in around 1900. The Queen's favorite palace is Windsor Castle, and she likes living there. And she, to be honest, she lives there most of the year in Windsor. She comes to London for ceremony, but the other members of the family do not live in Buckingham Palace. They live in Clarence House or Lancaster House or St. James's Palace. And most of the young royals, you know, like William, who will be the king after Charles, he lives in Kensington Palace because it's much more like a home. You know, it's much more homely. You know, in the end, you can have only so much gold and big rooms, and it's just not a friendly space, Buckingham Palace. You can visit it though. You can visit it and pay. It's quite expensive, but it is interesting inside. It's very red and gold. I think the decoration is very. We call it. It's a strange word, but I'm going to tell you. We call it chocolate box. I don't know if you understand, but it's like chocolate box. Sorry, chocolate. Put an extra C in. No, chocolate box. It means it's very plush, very rich, but it's like, would you want to live there? Is it comfortable? Actually, I'll ask you, who would like to live in Buckingham Palace? Would you like to live there? Anyone?
Maybe just for one day to try.
Yeah, exactly. I think one day, a weekend would be great. But, you know, even the Queen doesn't like it because the rooms are so big, they're always cold. And what she does, though, the Queen meets the Prime Minister there, like on her visits weekly. She has he has an audience with the Queen and he tells her things. And it's ceremonial, really. It's not a fun place to live, I don't think. It's, you know, you can't have a laugh, I think. So Tower Bridge, which we've talked about.
Number 3, Tower Bridge. Constructed between 1886 and 1894 across the River Thames to ease congestion, Tower Bridge features classic Victorian Gothic architectural elements that complement the nearby Tower of London. Built as a combination suspension bridge and bascule in order to accommodate passing tall-mast ships, Tower Bridge is now a recognizable emblem of the city and one of the world's most famous bridges. Not only is the bridge open to automobiles, pedestrian visitors can also enjoy sweeping vistas from the walkways. Number 2.
One thing they didn't show you is, I don't know if you know, but Tower Bridge opens. It opens to ships. Now, it's a very interesting story I'll quickly tell you. In the 1950s, this was done, the ship thing was opened manually by a man, and he had a sort of big buttons and pulleys. And obviously traffic goes across this bridge. And what's supposed to happen when the bridge is going to open, the barriers come down, and so no cars can come across. And I think it was at night, and there was a man driving a bus, a big, you know, the big red London buses, you know, the big, and what happened was he was going across and the bridge started to open and the bus was going quite fast because the man who was controlling it forgot to put the barriers down. So the bus driver had to make a split-second decision what to do. because the bus was full of people and the bus would have gone into the river. So he had to decide that he could not stop the bus because the speed was too fast and the bus would have just gone like that and then into the river. So what he did was he put his foot down on the accelerator and speeded up really fast. And as the bridge was opening like that, and then the bus went from that side to the other side across a gap of about 6 foot. And the man got awarded a medal from the Queen because he did something really heroic and saved all these people. Because if he braked, the bus would have just skidded and then just gone down into the gap. So by speeding up, he did a sort of volley across, and you can read about it. I can't remember his name, but he did a great thing. But then they installed a more mechanical motorized, and now it's all digital, and they have much more protection, so it doesn't happen. One thing also that happened with the Tower Bridge was about 15 years ago, a pilot, an Air Force pilot who was resigning from the Air Force, flew under the bridge when there were people on it in a jet, and he got arrested because it could have been a disaster. It was like a proper fighter jet, and he came all the way through he came through the gap. He came through this the bit here. Yeah. He went straight through the middle when it was full of people in a fighter jet. He came all the way down the Thames and then just went straight through, which is really, I think he cleared it by about 8 foot on each side. But if he'd hit it, it would have been a disaster. But there's lots of stories connect. And often I take students across the walk because it's quite nice to walk across. It's free to walk.
Tips. Tower Bridge is now a recognizable emblem of the city and one of the world's most famous bridges. Not only is the bridge open to automobiles, pedestrian visitors can also enjoy sweeping vistas from the walkways.
Try and speed up a bit.
Reputation as a place of torture and death.
Tower of London.
Despite this, or perhaps because of it, the tower is now one of Britain's most popular tourist attractions due to its rich history. Before we unveil our #1 pick, here are a few.
It's interesting with the Tower of London. It's a great place, and I think its history is very important. You can visit the crown jewels, all our special crowns, crowns. But you don't get very long. You have to walk really quickly. From my last friend who went there from overseas said he wanted to stop and really look, and they were like, no, move. So you couldn't really look very long. But it's good at night. I think it's good to walk by there at night. There's some paths along the river you can visit there, and it's very romantic. And it is 1,000 years old, Tower of London, so it has great history. But there are other places in London that have great history as well. Let me just wind through quickly, see what she's going to say.
Honorable mentions.
Oh, the Globe Theatre. We've done that last week, actually. Royal Albert Hall, I think, is great. Great for concerts.
Ben and the Palace of Westminster.
Oh yeah, they're saying Big Ben's
indisputable symbols of the city. The Houses of Parliament and Big Ben are two of the most recognizable landmarks in London. Though the original building on this site was once used as the residence for English monarchs.
Also, this isn't very old. People think, the Tower of, the Palace of Westminster and Big Ben are very old because they look old. They're in the Gothic style. Gothic. But it's actually Gothic revival. And it's actually only built about 160 years ago. And it's falling apart, unfortunately. But because it's built with sandstone. The original Houses of Parliament caught fire in the 1840s and they burnt down. So it looks much older than it actually is. But it's interesting to see, and you can visit. You can also visit Parliament just for education as well. You can go on an educational trip, and I recommend that. There are many, many interesting things, hidden things about Parliament. I mean, especially, I don't know if you know about this, but you know about suffragettes. Does everyone know about suffrage? You know, it's important to write about. Suffrage is about when women got the vote in England, because up to 100 years ago, women didn't have the vote, you know, which was terrible. And a very, very famous woman called Emily Davison, she hid in the Houses of Parliament when they were doing the census in 1911, so she could write her address as the Houses of Parliament. She was a very heroic woman. You know, she died very sadly in an accident, but she was a suffragette. And there are many things about Parliament and women getting the vote and things which are interesting. So I think it's worth going there to see these things. You know, but you know, you're all intelligent young people, so I think you can find unusual things. And I'm going to try and show you some unusual things, or well, the video says weird things, weird things to do in London. So hopefully you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Yep. Can you see it now? Can you see anything?
No.
Oh, okay. It's not working. Let me just stop sharing, and it might be just that I'll come back and try it again. Because sometimes when you switch from video to video, it just flips out. How about now? Any luck? Can you see a video? Can you all see the screen? Weston, Delia, Alice? Great.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is alternative London. We've got not very long, but this man's quite funny. He's American, but he is good. And he's showing some strange things in London, which I'm going to share with you. And one's very funny. The first one, when I saw this morning, I was like, wow, I didn't know that. And so this is quite funny, but let's watch.
10 weird things to do in London. I'm Chris. This is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, and entertaining. In this video, I'm not going to be telling you the usual things to do. I'm going to be telling you some weird things to do in this city. And the first one is here in Trafalgar Square. It's at that Admiralty Arch right back there, and it's to go find London's nose. Let's go check it out.
This is very strange.
Arch right in the traffic lane on here, where there's a small protrusion, and what do we see?
Can you
a
see?
Nose. There was an artist in 1997. He put up about 30 of these across London. 7 of these noses are still left. You can do a whole...
I had never seen that before. And so I'm going to go and see that. I'm going to go myself and have a look. And he said there's 7 somewhere around London, so I'm going to have to try and find them. So that's fun, isn't it? That's a really good thing. I think that's make a really good photo shoot. You know, you could do the 7 places around London where this artist has put them up. And I think that's great. It's really funny. So that's a good one. London's nose. Didn't know. I know Admiral. The word he's saying, by the way, is Admiralty. It's to do with shipping. Admiralty Arch is a beautiful arch.
Walk to find the 7 noses as well. But in this video, I'm just going to leave you with this one and head on to the other weird things to do in London. Second weird thing to do in London, from the nose, turn left. We're going to head back to Trafalgar Square and find London's smallest police station. Here's the arch, there's the cross, and right over here in this hollowed out lamppost is London's smallest police station, built in 1920 to house 2 police officers as a lookout to keep.
So basically they had 2 policemen who stayed in that little circle. It's very small, to to look, to see if bad things were happening. And then they could, because at that time in 1920s, you know, obviously people would come into Trafalgar Square and do bad things, maybe a riot or something. They would always have 2 policemen, but it's very small. You know, they would be like that, you know, standing next to each other and just looking. So it's something you don't notice. It's there because it's stone. The stone on the outside is granite. But yeah, I think he's shown 2 good things already. I think there are more. you know, more exciting than the than the other things, I think. Let's see what else he
The
says.
piece on this busy, bustling square. Another weird attraction in London is the Old Operating Theatre Museum.
This is good.
This operating theater museum dates back to 1822, where this operating theater is in the roof space of a church. To get to it, you go up this staircase. I'll show you going down because it's hard to film going up.
Wow.
It's 52 steps up to the top. Admission is £650 British, and you can see what surgery was like in the 1800s. And this theater is where they would show off practices. Interesting, surgery was done here before the introduction of antiseptic, so hands weren't cleaned, neither was the things used to actually perform the surgery. Anyway, I am glad.
That looks horrific, doesn't it? Just imagine having an operation. And the reason it's called operating theatre, it's like a theatre because people are watching. So, but you have to remember the people didn't know anything about antiseptic, you know, washing your hands or anything. So they would just get one knife and go, and then get another knife and go, you know, and it's like sawing, you know. And also there was no anesthetic. Do you know the word anesthetic? I don't know if I can spell it right. Anesthetic. I need a T in it. Anesthetize. An S. Anesthetic. It's a complex word. Anesthetic. I think there should be an extra A in there. I think that's how you spell it. Let me just check. I'm probably spelling it wrong because it's not a word I use a lot. No, it's not going to let me. Anesthetic. And I haven't got an extra E in. Let me just see how it's. Well, basically, anesthetic is the thing they give you, the drug they give you when you have an operation. So you go to sleep. You know, and it's, I'll try and find the exact spelling because it's quite a complex word. Let me just get Google up. Anesthetic. I'm spelling it wrong. Oh yes, it's got that's how you spell it. It lets me just click on it. Anesthetic. No, I was spelling it right. It just wouldn't let me, it wouldn't give me, sometimes Google doesn't recognize the word. So, oh well, but that's how you spell it. So no anesthetic at that time. So the people were awake, which you'd imagine you're having an operation, but you're awake. What they would sometimes do is they'd make someone bite on something like a, you know, with alcohol in it. So you would be a bit drunk, I suppose. You'd be drunk and you'd be in pain. It's a very bad combination. So you could go to this, but it's a good thing to go. The theatre, I believe, is very interesting. I had a friend who went there and he said it was quite ghostly as well. It was like, because it's so old, it's 200 years old. So it had a very strange feel, mysterious feel.
And I was not in that hospital. Wooden tables, don't they look a little less modern than when I was recently in the hospital? What did they have under the table to catch the blood? Sawdust. Over on the side, they show you the bandage rollers. They used to reuse bandages too. And then they wonder why people got infected, or at that time they called it ward fever from the recovery ward. Outside the operating theater, the rest of the museum shows you more about medicine of the time. They've got an old pharmacy, they've got old pharmaceutical products. I mean, it's really intriguing. You're not going to spend the day in this museum, but it's worth at least 30 minutes. And it's right next to the Shard and Borough Market, so lots of stuff to do in this area. Another weird thing to do in London is to visit the Wellcome Collection. Wellcome with...
Actually, this place, the Wellcome, is excellent. I go there a lot. It's very, very interesting. It's all to do with the body and health and the mind, and they have amazing displays. It's interactive. it's free. It's free as well. It's really good. So it's a great place he's telling you about.
2 L's. It is a free museum and library for the incurably curious. It was established by Mr. Welcome, a philanthropist, a collector of medicinal historical items. Somehow in his personal collection and on display here is Napoleon's toothbrush, a mummy, some hair from a really old former king. Lots of really just weird things, hard to describe. There's currently an exhibition on cows, hence the picture of cows out here. There's alien sex museum exhibition. It's I don't know, it's really hard to explain. You just have to
This room is an amazing room. It's called the reading room, as you can see, and it's a great, you can go there in for free and you can study there. So it's a great space if you want to do some writing, and they have lots of books you can look at, very unusual, interesting books, not just on science and the body, but sort of even food and nutrition. And in fact, down the end, they've got a really good section on the face and makeup, because you know it's part of our identity, and they have these big mirrors and you can draw yourself. You can look in the mirror and they give you paper and they say, what do you see? And you can draw things. It's very, very, very good museum. I love it. I go in here and do some writing sometimes myself if I'm doing some studying, because the chairs are very lovely and it's comfortable and it's beautiful room. It's got a very big ceiling. It's very beautiful.
come and check it out. There's also a cafe and a gift shop if you want to part with some souvenirs or you're hungry. The next weird thing to do in London is to visit the Grant Museum of Zoology. You can link this one up to the Wellcome Collection. It's just 2 blocks around the corner and run by the University of Central London. This museum not open super early, 1 to 5 p.m. Monday to Saturday. It is all about the preserved remains of animals. They've got bones, they've got preserved things. It's basically one big room with lots of things in cases, but it is one of those things that while I always knew these kinds of things existed for science, I never really knew it. And they've got like an elephant skull, which is really big. And next to it, they've got an elephant's heart, which is also big. You can see remains of a tiger and the head of a saltwater crocodile. Also in the back, they've got preserved animals, including a preserved pufferfish. He looks pretty sharp. And unless you're a huge lover of animal remains, this might not be worth the trip on its own, but it's certainly worth checking this out after you've checked out the Wellcome Collection. For a weird hotel in London, sleep at the London Zoo. Yes, the London Zoo has a hotel. It's called the Gear Lion Lodge, and you can sleep with the lions, well, next to the lion enclosure at the London Zoo. Gear Lion Lodge consists of 9 cabins, each sleeps 2, and they start at 378 pounds for 2 people, including dinner and breakfast and entry into the zoo on both days. What do? You get to sleep right next to the lion enclosure. That's right. And the zookeepers will take you on a guided tour of the Africa section. I mean, I haven't heard of anything.
I mean, that's quite interesting, but it's quite expensive, £300. But I have to tell you, I live near the zoo. I live in Camden Town. My flat is quite near the zoo. It's sort of that way. And there's some paths you can walk across in Regent's Park and you can hear the animals. And you can also see some animals as well in cages. But I'm not a great fan of zoos. I think animals should be free. I think, you know, putting animals in cages and for us to look at them is a bit crazy. It's not my philosophy. I think they should be free. I tell you what they should do. I'll tell you something crazy. I think they should let the lions out, the lions and the tigers out in London. That would be more interesting. You know, that could be more fun. It'd be like a video game, a live video game, where people had to run away from the lions, then the lions would have some freedom. You know, maybe, I don't know. Could be you know, if you want to try it, try it. You know, but I don't think it's necessarily good. Right, let me just move on to the next one. What's this?
This used to be his house.
Oh, yeah,
Who
this
is he? He's a famous architect in London that designed the Bank of London, and he is one of the world's original collectors. His house is full of knickknacks. I have never seen so many rare collectible items. He even has a original Egyptian sarcophagus in his house. Admission is free. There are fairly long lines. Don't get discouraged. They can move pretty quickly. Okay, if you didn't think it was weird down there.
I can tell you, the only thing with Sir John Soane's museum, it's very interesting. And they've even opened the basement now with the kitchens. But they have guides, they have people who help. And this is just my opinion, but I'll share it with you. They're often quite old people and they're quite rude. And I went with some students and this lady came up to us. I was telling the students about the house and she was like, you can't talk to the students loudly. You've got to walk around in silence. And I was like, why? Why? I want to make it alive. I want to tell them how exciting this is. And then she said, your students are looking too closely. And I was like, yeah, because they want to look, you know. That's just my opinion. But it is very good. It is actually very good. But it's maybe go when it's quiet, you know. Right, let me continue. This one, this is near me in Camden.
It's called Cyberdog, and it's got two big silver statues. I don't know, let's go inside, see what's inside Cyberdog. Cyberdog is definitely the weirdest store I've been in London. It is in Camden Market in the basement level, and it's got everything you need to go to that next rave party. You want light up sunglasses, light up hats, light up jackets, everything that lights up, blinks, moves to the music. Even their escalator has like Pac-Man characters on it. The ninth weird thing to do in London has a bit more culture. This is
I'd quickly tell you, Cyberdog, I don't think it's open now. It's near me in Camden. And it's just a shop. So, I mean, there's actually we have in London some very, very historic shops, which are incredible. And they're very interesting. And even I took some students to a famous place the other day that is a barber. Do you know the word barber? Do you know this word, Weston? Barber? What's a barber?
Yeah, to cut the hair and barber shop.
Yes, exactly, and to shave. And we have the oldest one in London, the oldest one in the world, and it's almost 250 years old, and it's called Truefit and Hill, and they're really lovely people. And about 3 weeks ago, I took some students to show them. We were just going to stand outside. And they said, oh, no, come in. And the man gave us a lovely free talk all about the history of the shop. And they cut the hair of the royal family. So Prince Charles, the Duke of Edinburgh, William, they go to Kensington Palace. They're very lovely people. But also they make their own perfumes and soap and cologne. And it's really original. And what was so lovely, they gave us little samples, like little cologne samples for all the students, which I thought was so nice for free. And it was just lovely. So really lovely shop to visit and friendly. And there's some really interesting historic shops in London, even a very, very, very old cheese shop. You know cheese? You know what cheese is? There is a shop that's almost 300 years old that sells cheese in London. Very famous, called Paxton and Whitfield. Let's go on. This is Tate Modern, I think.
visit the Tate Modern Museum, which is generally regarded as one of the best modern art museums in the world.
It is
But
good.
modern art can be kind of on the weird side. Take, for example, this piece, a men's urinal, signed by the artist. That's it. Or take this room. I mean, it's really interesting to walk through, and it probably makes you think and makes you wonder what it is. But modern art is definitely a different art than what I'm used to. There's some things that are weird, but there's some things that are pretty cool. Take, for example, this robotic art piece. Final weird thing to do in London is...
I'll quickly tell you, there is another two Tate galleries in London. The best one, I think the better one, is Tate Britain. So go to Tate Britain. Tate Modern's great, but it's very big. But Tate Britain is, oh, my spelling, sorry. Tate Britain is smaller. It has some beautiful paintings as well, some 19th century British paintings and 18th century, but it's all about British art, whereas Tate Modern's about modern art from all over the world. And Tate Britain has some amazing, beautiful art. So, and it's free to visit as well. And it's by the Thames in Pimlico. It's very easy to get to. So I recommend that one actually. The next one he's saying is what?
To take a London loo tour. It is London's only toilet-themed walking tour.
This sounds
They've got
mad.
4 different walking tours, all themed about toilets. One, you can follow the life of Thomas Crapper. Yes, if you ever wondered how the toilet got its name Crapper, or about the life of the person that gave the toilet the name Crapper, well, you'll want to check out that walking tour. All right, well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and found some weird things to do in London. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up below. Click here to subscribe. Consider following me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or Instagram.
I'll stop it there. I'll stop sharing because I'm just looking at the time. Let me come back to you. So what did you think of the alternative London? Did you think it was quite fun? It was quite good. Well, I'll tell you one, I mean, I could actually, you know, create my own little list of them as well. So maybe in a few weeks, I'll give you my alternative London, my top 10 alternative London, like fun shops, good places to eat, the best markets. Oh, I know, I was going to show you quickly before I go, I was going to show you something from the river. Do you remember I was talking about walking along the foreshore of the river? I won't be 1 second. I'll just quickly grab something. I've only got 2 things I could quickly grab. Right. So this, can you see my screen? Yeah. This is part of something. Can anyone guess what this is? Anyone, any idea? It's a bit hard to guess, actually. I'll tell you. It's part of a pipe for smoking.
Oh.
But it was long. It was probably this long, and it has a bowl on the end. This is about 200 years old.
Mm.
And what happened in this time in London, these are made of clay, pottery, but they were very cheap, very, very cheap. So people would smoke them with tobacco inside and then throw them in the river. And so you see many of these pieces of pipe all over the foreshore, everywhere on the river. So you can pick one up for free, you know. And then the other thing, which I think you might know, it's a shell. It's an oyster shell. An oyster, you know, there are 2 pieces. It's where the pearls come from. And originally in London, oysters were very, very cheap. They were the food of the poor, the poorest people. And so along the riverbed, you get many, many, many oyster shells, many on the foreshore. But because, as I said, the river is tidal and it goes out and comes in, it changes every day. It mixes the sand and the rocks. So when you go down there, you can find interesting things. You never know what you'll find. In fact, crazily, there's a very good book on it, and it's called, I think I've shared this with you before, but I'll just put it in the Google. Let me just get the page up. Let's see, Google Translate. It's a great word for people who walk along the river and find things, and it's mudlark. They're called mudlarks. It's a very, very old English word. And a lady has written a very good book on mudlarks, and she's found incredible things. She's found gold by the river. She's got a very good eye, and she's walked along and she's found, because if you think the river has flown through London for thousands of years and people have lost things in the river. She's found rings, she's found old coins, she's found she's found bombs from the Second World War, which is very dangerous because the bombs fell in the river and they could still explode. So you have to call the police if you find a bomb. And the worst thing is she's even found bodies, because obviously people fall in the river and, either intentionally or accidentally. And she was walking along the river one day and she thought she saw, because it's the sand, she thought she saw sort of like a glove. And so she went towards this glove, but it was actually a hand. And the rest of the person was under the mud. And it's, but it's free to walk. I mean, the bit I'll show you, maybe I'll do a talk on that one time because it's quite interesting, the things you could see. And I've found some interesting things in the history of the River Thames and mudlarking. That could be a good subject, actually, the River Thames and mudlarking, because there's lots of stories connected to the river. And it's a lovely place to go. During lockdown, it was almost the only place I could find to be quiet because, you couldn't know while it was open. So you can look at the time the river is low. There's a table. It's called, I'll put it in here. It's called a tide table. And that tells you what hour of the day the river is low so you can walk. And then you can work out where to go. And there are many parts you can go to. Many other people do it. It's a very old tradition. And you have to be careful and wear sensible shoes. But I think I'll do a talk on that maybe one time. That could be very good. Well, I'm going to stop because I've gone on a bit too long, 1:15. But thank you all of you for coming today. Lovely to meet you, all of you. And I'll see you again. Hopefully I'll see some of you again next week. But take care of yourselves, everyone. And lovely to see you all. Lovely to meet you, Alice.
Me too.
Thank you. And I'll see Chloe, lovely Chloe, Aisha, and Weston and Delia down there being a bit quiet, but lovely to see you. I'll see you again. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye now. Bye. Bye now. Thanks, Delia.
Bye.